Welcome to Hubs and Drivers, a podcast for building product marketers, sponsored by BLD Marketing. I'm Jeff Donaldson, your host. On this episode, recruitment marketing in a tight labor market. A global pandemic that has changed norms in the workplace, fierce competition for the very best workers, and rising expectations from the recruits, the people that are looking for a job. It is a brand new world when it comes to recruitment marketing for building materials manufacturers. And in many ways, they realize they have to rethink that recruitment marketing strategy to, in some sense, respond to this new paradigm. Here at BLD Marketing, we're working with two different clients in that space so that they can find the very best workers for the openings that they have at their organization. Today's panel on Hubs and Drivers includes my colleagues Rachel Cronin, Account Operations Manager here at BLD, and Amy Meyers, Director of Paid Media. Ladies, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
One of the clients is the country's largest privately held building materials supplier. And of course, given the rise in residential construction, specifically in the residential housing market, their business is booming. Rachel, let's start with what we're doing in terms of the challenges they face and how we're helping them to solve those challenges.
Sure. Well, it's definitely been very busy for this client. And I think, once again, we can thank the pandemic for that. People were stuck at home. They're looking around their house at projects they've never finished or things that they want to change. So now you have a whole new crew of DIYers, and then the contractor businesses are becoming more and more busy. So they're heading to these stores. So for our client, they're a national leading building supply company, and we partnered with them at the end of 2020, I believe. So our focus was to help them meet this demand. So there's more demand for their product, which means there needs to be more people in the store helping them out, getting the product out to the customers. So we started a recruitment campaign for them. We focused on two different markets or target audiences for what they needed the most in their stores. And we pushed on multiple different platforms, which I'm sure Amy will discuss, to get more employees in the stores and, show them that it's a great company to work for. You can go in at the bottom and really make something for yourself and make a career. Since BLD has been partnering with this client, it's been great. It's going very well. We have increased hires 27% since we began working with them and 22.9% in 2022 alone. So what we're doing is definitely making an impact, and we're very fluid in our approach. So we change things as we go. We're always tweaking and recommending different things, trying new things, doing tests, just to keep this progression and keeping these numbers up.
And I want to talk about tactics in a minute, Amy, but let's focus in on something you mentioned, Rachel, and it was about the key message for that company, crystallizing that message, because with this specific building materials supplier, it's a family-owned company, and in some sense they want to telegraph that notion that they want their employees to become members of a family, and in some way when they become members of that family, they will be promoted from within. You can build a career with them. That was part of what we built their message on.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are a family-owned business, and they've been around for quite some time in our area, and they've been growing. So they do promote that. You come in, we're going to work hard. That's not a joke, but you're going to be rewarded. You're going to be able to excel your career and try different things. You can move in different paths. You can go into different places. The opportunity is endless with this client, which is nice.
Now, in terms of paid media tactics, Amy, talk a little bit about what we use specifically to help drive that message home and get recruits into the funnel.
Well, I think it depends on the size of the entity that you're working with. As you mentioned, we work with two different clients, and they're different in both size and also industry that they're in. So if you have a client that has a large national footprint, that's a large company, they typically have an HR department. So they tend to be tapped in already to companies like Indeed, who are helping them set up their recruitment efforts and their events that they're having. What they look to us for more are the more tactical things on the ground within the space for the market. So for the one client that we do this for, we've used programmatic advertising that's very focused on the personas that we were talking about that reflect what kind of employee that you're searching for, the position. And then in other cases, we're adding on things that are more focused geographically geographically to specific store locations, because not all stores need the same types of employee, or, or having like a hiring need at that time. Right. So we found other platforms that can be very geographically focused, that take a look at what is the position I'm hiring for, what's the competition in the marketplace for similar positions, what does that mean for the price that you're going to have to pay for that month of activity that you're trying to drive more applications in. For other clients that are smaller in scope and maybe have a smaller geographic footprint, we are helping them more with their event type things because they don't have this expansive HR department. So we're helping on different levels with them. Similarly, doing things with, the programmatic effort and like a max recruit effort, but also incorporating some paid social media things, LinkedIn as well as Facebook and Instagram to try and drive applications.
So the other client that we're working with is one of the largest manufacturers of window and door profiles in the United States. And they went through a bit of a contraction at the beginning of the pandemic, and then they realized they had to staff up because just like that other client, the one that's in the lumber industry, they were seeing huge demand, all driven by residential construction in many ways. Rachel, talk more about our approach there with that client. We're talking about windows and doors here versus lumber.
Sure. Yeah, windows and doors, they're definitely experiencing that boom of activity as well, and they need the people. The great thing about this client specifically is that Bill had the opportunity to go out and actually interview these employees and talk to them about, why do you like working here? And I think that it's so important to get that point of view from those employees because it helps us, one, understand, how can we help push this recruitment effort? What can we know to tell people like why they should be applying there?
Yeah, it's an authentic story in many ways.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So it was a very eye-opening experience, and it taught us a lot about who we need to target and what we need to pay attention to when we're targeting. And that's the great benefits that are offered, the different types of schedule. It's a very good, work-life balance at this place. So there's a lot of key points to focus on when doing the recruitment marketing for this client. And this campaign has kicked off. Again, multiple different ways we're promoting these type of jobs through social media, Max Recruit, multiple different things that Amy will get into, but overall just a push to get people in the warehouse.
Absolutely. And when you think about that, when it comes to all those different strategies and tactics, Amy, of course measurement is critical. How do we go about measuring these campaigns? Because when you think about it, there are so many different touch points in the recruitment cycle when a company is recruiting an employee. How do we focus in on determining how the tactics we are recommending are successful for these clients?
Well, I think in both of these cases, we've used a landing page strategy that we've been able to pixel. So our job is to target the right profile, get them to that landing page, sell the job, the positions on that landing page, and get them to click on the Apply Now button. So that's what our KPI is right now, getting them to click to do the actual application. Where it gets challenging is that in some cases, again, this depends on the size of the client. Some of them have a back-end other application, and so once they click through, we can't necessarily track that journey as it continues. Right. Others, it's a different story. It's all going to depend on what they have as their system to accept applications. So it can be a little challenging.
And I think on that note, it's really nice when our clients work with us so tightly where we can have data from what they see on their end and we can compare it to what we have on our end. And that really helps for strong reporting. And
you can't draw a straight line necessarily, but you can definitely track patterns and when you think that there's some trending that's important. For one of the clients, we see some interesting things where it's like, what are you doing in this market that's driving this many more new users to come here that you might not be...
How can we replicate
that? How can we replicate that? What are you doing that's different? So, and sometimes, you can't pinpoint it because it has more to do with what's going on in that market that is beyond what the client is doing. So again, no straight lines, but our job is to drive them to the landing page and as you always say, get them into the church.
Yeah, so that they'll listen to the sermon or the homily, right? And it's funny because that one client that we're dealing with, they're in a market, one specific market, where there recently was announced a huge amount of layoffs at another company in town who in many ways those employees who are now outgoing might be appropriate for our client in some way. So we had to look at those situations as well. But it's all data-driven, isn't it?
Yep. It absolutely is. And the other challenge is between those two clients, one is more of a generalized position. The other, they tend to have more specialized needs. So to your point, when that layoff happened, there might now be an influx in that marketplace of people who are qualified for that job, as opposed to trying to train them and teach them and bring them up through the ranks. So that's always a challenge as well.
Rachel Cronin, Amy Meyers, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
So check out this number. According to the Human Capital Institute, 75% of companies are continuing their investment in recruitment marketing, or they're even increasing it. Tight labor market, tons of competition, requires time, energy, and resources to find the right candidates for your organization. Hey, would you like us to cover a specific topic on Hubs and Drivers? Email us at info@hubsanddriverspodcast.com. That's info@hubsanddriverspodcast.com. That's all for this edition of Hubs and Drivers. I'm Jeff Donaldson. See you next time.